And welcome to today's community workshop on the low carbon fuel standard, or LCFS. Before we get started, I do want to note that we have Spanish interpretation services. So I'm going to hand it to Aldo to provide instructions. Aldo?
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening, everybody. My name is Aldo, alongside with my colleague, Leticia. We will be providing interpreting services. At the bottom of your screen in a minute, you will see an icon of a globe. When you see that globe, click on the globe and select English. As soon as you click on it once again to press original audio. If there are any comments that they're in Spanish, you will hear the live interpretation without any flow or distractions. So make sure that you go ahead and select that, even if you speak English. I would now go ahead and repeat this in Spanish briefly. Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Dentro de un momento van a ver un icono en forma de un mundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Una vez que lo vean, favor de presionar, elegir español, volver a presionar y elegir silenciar audio original. Si tiene algún problema, favor de alzar la mano, ya sea de forma original o con el icono en la parte de abajo, y con mucho lo apoyaremos. Gracias por estar aquí. Que tengan una buena reunión. Cheryl, thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you. All right, so we are recording the workshop tonight. So just be aware that we are recording it and we will be posting it online. All right, my name is Cheryl Laskowski, and I oversee the Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program here at the California Air Resources Board. I want to thank you all for taking your personal time to be here today to participate in this workshop, and we're really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the program and how we can improve the low carbon fuel standard. This is a second day of the community meetings. Yesterday we held the same presentation. So if you were here yesterday, you'll hear the same thing tonight. And so we'll continue to have some discussion and Q&A after the presentations. First, we're going to start with a presentation coordinated by the Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. And then I will present an overview of the program and discuss some of the updates we are proposing. And later we will, after both presentations, we will hear public comment. So with that, I'd like to first turn things over to Leslie Martinez of the Leadership Council. Leslie?
Hi, so my name is Leslie Martinez, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist over at Leadership Council. First, I would like to thank CARB for their willingness to hold a workshop where community residents throughout the state can provide input on how the LCFS can better serve communities while meeting the ambitious climate goals for our state. Several community residents will be joining the workshop tonight and have joined workshops and meetings for months. We hope and we expect the CARB staff and board members will consider and respect the vast knowledge you have heard and will hear from community leaders. We thank all folks that have volunteered their time and continue to share their experiences in hopes of helping CARB create holistic policy that does not sacrifice the health and habitability of communities or worsen the already dire conditions of many disadvantaged communities. We look forward to working with staff and CARB leaders to ensure that the LCFS is rooted in science, truth, and equity, and is a program we can all be proud of. I would also like to thank everyone at the Stanford Woods Institute for the Environment for their work on simulating an EJ scenario for the low carbon fuel standard rule. As an environmental justice advocate, I'm really thankful for institutions who find value in community-based approaches to policy. And with that, I'll turn things over to Professor Wara and look forward to learning with all of y'all. Take it away, Professor Wara.
Thanks so much, Leslie, and please call me Michael. I'm going to speak to you tonight about, as Leslie said, simulating an EJ scenario for the low carbon fuel standard rule update using ARB's model known as the CATS model. And this work is really a team effort between the folks on this title slide, myself, Mareldi Ahmada Paras, Mike Mastrandrea, Henry Zhu, Claire Morton, and Rani Chor. They are researchers, postdocs, grad students, and undergraduates at Stanford who have really thrown themselves into this project in partnership with the EJ organizations that are interested in the LCFS rule update. And our goal was really to to try to implement sort of some of the consensus environmental justice proposals in the model that ARB is using to simulate outcomes under the LCFS. And I'll just give you a quick take home, which is that we found that it is possible both to achieve ARB's objectives and achieve them at a reasonable cost, and take greater account of some of the concerns that have been expressed by EJ organizations with respect to the LCFS. So I lead a team that works with EJ advocates to conduct modeling related to these policy asks. As I said, the team is composed of a variety of researchers and students, and we'll be releasing a fact sheet soon that'll provide more detail on today's presentation. And I should say that the views I'm going to express today are my own personal views, not those of Stanford University or the Woods Institute. Next slide, please. I think it's important to provide some context before we get into the modeling work. So first of all, what is the CATS model? It's a model that's used by CARB that evaluates the likely future transportation fuel mix that's incentivized under the LCFS by finding the least cost solution to meet fuel demand given a greenhouse gas constraint. That's a complicated mathematical problem to solve. The model solves it for each year that you provide it an inputs that basically estimate the demand for liquid fuels in California, or actually the energy demand for transportation in California. And it is very focused on greenhouse gas emissions. And that can mean a couple of things. One is that sometimes local impacts to communities are created by suggestions from the model that aren't really evaluated by the model. It's also the case that sometimes if assumptions regarding the carbon intensity of different fuels are inaccurate, the model can generate results that actually maybe don't reflect the greenhouse gas reductions in the world. And we'll talk about both of those concerns in the presentation later. But just to get to the heart of what we're trying to do here, we modeled the impacts of two key requests as our EJ scenario. And I want to emphasize that the EJ community in California is diverse and it has many different ideas about the LCFS and how it should evolve. But we tried to simplify things and just look at two specific issues for this presentation tonight. One is that avoided methane crediting at confined animal feeding operations end in 2024. Under the CARB proposal, the preferred alternative as presented back a few months ago, this crediting would continue until 2040. The other change we made was to impose a cap on the use of biofuel crop feedstocks. So what this means is making liquid biofuels from corn or soybeans rather than from used cooking oil or other waste products. CARB has expressed some concern about this issue, but in the current preferred alternative, and what I mean by that is the growth in the use of these what are called virgin oils as a feedstock for biofuels. But in the current proposal, there is no cap or limit on the use of crop feedstocks. We impose a cap that basically sets a limit that's close to what's happening today, right? So sort of 21, 22 levels of the use of corn and soy as an input to liquid biofuels. We also modify one additional assumption. We use the bank of credits that is currently in existence today. So companies that have overcomplied generated extra credits and stored them away. We use those credits in our modeling in the period to 2030 in order to maintain lower prices. The CARB modeling essentially does not use that bank of credits at all, so far as we can tell. Next slide, please. We've spoken to the Air Resources Board regarding this modeling work, and one comment that we took away, which I think is important, is that it's important to focus on the near term. in these model outputs. The model runs through 2045, but we focus on the period through 2030 as the most reliable. The reason for that, and I think the reason for that advice was that things are changing so quickly in the transportation sector, especially as electrification really takes off, that it's very hard to predict that far into the future. And so it makes more sense to focus on the near term. As a part of our modeling work, we took a close look at the ARB's assumptions used for scenario development. And this is really important. We found that at least as the assumptions that were used to generate the alternative scenarios that were shown earlier this year in the earlier workshop are out of date in ways that drive the model results. This is very important. The key issue is that ARB has taken ambitious action to push the transportation sector towards electrification. This was contemplated in the scoping plan adopted last year, and it's taken shape rapidly over the last 12 months in the form of the Advanced Clean Cars 2 rule, the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, and the Advanced Clean Fleets rule, all of which will have an impact, a material impact on the demand for liquid fuels relative to electricity in the transport sector. The ARB assumptions that were used to develop the preferred alternative, at least the modeling of the preferred alternative, basically assume that diesel demand grows slightly from now until 2046. We believe, and I think ARB also believes, that diesel demand is actually going to fall. And this is sort of liquid diesel and diesel equivalent demand is going to fall quite a bit over that period as fleets electrify and as light duty vehicles electrify. And this is also true for gasoline demand. So I would emphasize that updating this baseline is complex. ARB, it's our understanding that ARB is working on an update of their own for the rule proposal. And we have made a preliminary, what I would call a preliminary update, and we're still working on what we're going to call a final update to our baseline scenario that incorporates the recent rulemakings and the general shift toward electrification in other ARB rulemaking, because that has a very important impact on the low carbon fuel standard and on the demand for low carbon fuel standard credits. Next slide, please. So what are our policy adjustments? Just to give a little bit more detail. The first one is a phase out of avoided methane at confined animal feeding operations. And really we implement this in the model by changing the carbon intensity of confined animal feeding operation methane that's captured from minus 300 or so where it is today to 40. We do this, and this has an important impact because the capture of methane at confined animal feeding operations is used in combination with existing refinery steam methane reformer capacity to produce hydrogen, which is credited with a very low carbon intensity, and also to produce electricity, which is credited with a very low carbon intensity under the LCFS. Next slide, please. The other major change we make, as I mentioned, is that we limit the amount of crop oils that can be used at 1.2 million diesel gallon equivalent. This is from an ICCT scenario that was developed earlier. And the effect of this is to preserve conservatively an additional 500,000 acres of land that's needed under the baseline to grow the crops that will be used to make biofuels in California compared to our EJ scenario. This marginal land, mostly for soy production, is often provided in the current agricultural environment by the destruction of Amazonian rainforest. So there's a major carbon implication to allowing the use of crop oils as biofuels. ARB has been a leader, really a path-breaking leader over the last 15 years, including that effect, what's called the indirect land use change effect, as part of their calculus for developing carbon intensities, but they haven't updated the indirect land use change component of carbon intensities in quite some time. And they've announced that it's not going to be a part of this rulemaking, of this LCFS update. And so instead of trying to go after a more accurate assessment of injurious landing change, we simply limited the amount of crop oil that could be used in the LCFS and given the old ILUC carbon intensity. This next slide, please. So what are our findings? The first is that making these changes is possible given the updated baseline and the use of some banked credits at prices that are at least reasonable given the recent history of the LCFS. The average credit price for ARB's preferred alternative, called the baseline in these figures, is $89 until 2030. The average credit price in the EJ scenario is $198. It's important to note here that the use of banked credits stabilizes the credit price in the EJ scenario. What the effect of this does for what is a key transportation policy for ARB is to increase significantly the amount of subsidy provided to electric vehicles and electrification of vehicles under the program. So there's much faster and greater support for ARB's EV policies under the EJ scenario than under the ARB baseline or preferred alternative scenario, at least according to the model. Next slide, please. Another key finding is that the EJ scenario reduces local impacts. In particular, there are smaller volumes of biofuels utilized under liquid biofuels utilized under the scenario, about 10% less, 1,350 million gallons less. And that implies a reduction in refinery air pollution. Liquid biofuels are made at refineries, and there's a growing use of California refineries to create liquid biofuels. And so if we have less biofuel in the transportation mix, there'll be lower air pollution emissions at refineries. In addition, there's a significant effect on dairy methane gas, a decrease from 49 million MMBTUs to 12 million MMBTUs because of the changes in crediting and therefore the economics of confined animal feeding operation methane capture. Next slide, please. In addition, the EJ scenario avoids unintended impacts. It avoids land conversion greenhouse gas emissions when forests are turned into farms in order to grow crops for biofuels. It may reduce economic concentration in the dairy industry. It reduces the use of liquid biofuels that emit local air pollutants in EJ communities. It reduces the use of hydrogen produced at existing steam methane reformers that emit local air pollutants in EJ communities. And I think this is important. It focuses the LCFS subsidy in areas most likely to produce long-run transformation of the transport sector, including electrification and electrolytic hydrogen, also known as green hydrogen. And of course, the LCFS was created originally and has always been intended to be a transformative policy in the transportation sector. So we think that the EJ scenario actually is enhancing that effect rather than reducing it, all while achieving ARB's climate goals, a 30% reduction in carbon intensity of the liquid fuel stock by 2030, and also at a reasonable cost. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the update to assumptions to reflect the rapidly changing regulation and EV adoption is critical to LCFS planning. We've done it. We've made a preliminary attempt to do that in this study. We understand that ARB is also updating their assumptions, and we think that's going to be very important to understanding the implications of any scenario for update to the LCFS regulation. Update of assumptions means that the EJ scenario, including limits on methane crediting and crop-based biofuels, is achievable at reasonable credit prices and still achieves the ARB objectives in terms of carbon intensity reductions contemplated under the 2022 scoping plan. Stanford modeling suggests the EJ scenario could achieve ARB's goals while lowering impacts to EJ communities and potentially improving on the climate outcome. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I always forget this slide. I should also say that Neither the Climate and Energy Policy Program nor any other part of Stanford University take a formal position in favor or opposed to specific proposed program design elements of the low carbon fuel standard regulation. And of course, any errors or opinions expressed are solely mine. I won't even blame my students for them. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie and Michael. We will do the CARB presentation next, and then we will do take public comment on both presentations after I do my presentation. So there's also a Spanish version of the CARB presentation on the workshop website if you prefer to view that. I will now present an overview of the Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program and how it fits into the broader California climate policy. And I also want to note upfront that we are still developing the proposal to update the regulation, so your input here will help shape that proposal. So California has one of the most ambitious climate goals in the world, which is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. Combustion of fossil fuels in the transportation sector is a big contributor to climate change and is responsible for poor air quality that impacts public health. CARB, the California Air Resources Board, has a dual mission to address climate change and improve air quality. And we work across both of these areas to reduce fossil fuel use. Many of the strategies we are using to address climate change and achieve carbon neutrality are the same strategies that will also drastically improve air quality. Zero emission vehicles and providing cleaner fuels are critical to our air quality and climate goals. And to get to carbon neutrality, CARB is working toward a 94% reduction in fossil fuels by 2045. How are we doing that? By adopting regulations to accelerate the transition of zero emission passenger vehicles and goods movement equipment, as well as pursuing low carbon fuels. Regulations that we have adopted already to help meet these goals include advanced clean trucks, advanced clean cars, and advanced clean fleets. The Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program is also a part of that solution by supporting these regulations and by encouraging the production of cleaner fuel alternatives. Together, these different regulations and programs will help build a healthier California. The Low Carbon Fuel Standard Program has been in place since 2011. It has helped reduce the carbon intensity of California's transportation fuels by over 12.5%. The carbon intensity is a measure of how much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are released, all the way from the production of the fuel through the end use of that fuel, like the combustion of gasoline in a car. The LCFS has supported the displacement of over 25 billion gallons of petroleum fuels with lower carbon fuels. The increased use of these fuels has displaced fossil fuels and provided air quality benefits in California. As I noted, the LCFS supports the other regulations and programs by incentivizing growth of more zero emission infrastructure like electric and hydrogen charging stations. The LCFS also directs money from electricity charging to promote transportation electrification. This includes the Clean Fuel Reward Program that provided rebates to new zero-emission vehicles and utility-led programs like rebates for used vehicles. In just the past 10 years, California has doubled the volume of low-carbon fuels, and these fuels have displaced gasoline and diesel. So we've seen the development of these lower carbon fuels while we are going to the goal of zero emission vehicles. And so while we watch that space grow, we continue to achieve GHG emissions through lower carbon fuels in the interim. For vehicle charging, LCFS provides incentives in the form of credits for the development of vehicle charging infrastructure. Since 2019, the program has supported over 3,800 electric vehicle fast chargers across the state. We will also be proposing to expand these types of incentives to support truck charging that will help clean the air near ports, distribution centers, and freeways. I want to provide a little more general information on how the LCFS works to reduce GHGs in fuels. So many of you may be familiar with the LCFS, but just in case we all can get on the same page here. So the program works by establishing an annual declining carbon intensity target for transportation fuels used in California. And carbon intensity is a measure of greenhouse gas emissions associated with the production, distribution, and consumption of a fuel, which we call the life cycle emissions. The lower carbon a fuel is, the more credits can be generated in the program. And each fuel that generates credits in the program has to go through an evaluation by CARB staff and a third party to validate that the fuel is, in fact, low carbon. And this evaluation happens both before any credits are generated and annually after fuel is reported and generating credits in the program. This chart shows the carbon intensity goals established in our regulation. The stringency of the regulation increases each year, meaning the carbon intensity of the fuels must decline each year. So the black dots on the gray line are the yearly targets, and fuels below the line have a lower carbon intensity than the goal, and those fuels generate credits. Those credits can be sold to others to comply with the regulation. Some of the fuels that generate credits are listed in the slide and include things like renewable diesel, biomethane, electricity, and sustainable aviation fuel. The green line shows our progress to date. So you can see that we are exceeding our current goals as the actual carbon intensity in 2022 was 12.6% below the 2010 baseline. And our goal for 2022 was a 10% reduction. Therefore, we think the program is working through supporting carbon reductions in the transportation sector. And by seeing even more reductions than our regulation called for means even more GHG and air quality benefits. Some other features of the regulation include a price cap on credits to reduce the cost impacts to consumers. And as I noted, the program has a very high standard for fuel producers to ensure the accuracy of what fuel producers are telling us and what that carbon intensity is. So it goes through a very rigorous third-party review. And the LCFS provides funding for vehicle rebates and equity projects. And additionally, in addition to fuel pathways, we also provide credits for projects that are also needed to meet our carbon neutrality goals. So that includes projects like direct air capture, carbon capture and sequestration, and reducing GHG emissions in existing crude and refinery operations. The LCFS also leverages support from other programs to further incentivize the production of clean fuels. So we allow, we leverage the benefits and the rebates from the federal renewable fuel standard, the federal tax incentives, and state grants and rebates. And we're also happy that we have seen other states be interested in this type of program. And in fact, Oregon and Washington are now implementing similar low carbon fuel standard programs. And we've seen a lot of interest across the nation in these types of programs being adopted as well. So currently the LCFS team here at CARB is working to update the regulation to help the state reach its GHG reduction and carbon neutrality goals. The key parts of this update will include increasing the stringency of the program to displace fossil fuels, supporting electric and hydrogen truck refueling, including aviation in the regulation to decarbonize jet fuel, incentivizing more production of clean fuels needed in the future, such as low carbon hydrogen, and supporting methane emission reductions and deploying biomethane for best uses across transportation and other sectors. So what's next for the program and our updates? So staff's proposed regulatory updates will be released this summer. So while the model we have discussed, while the model we've used to discuss potential updates in our past workshop does include regulations such as advanced clean cars and advanced clean trucks, Michael is right when he said that the current model does not include the advanced clean fleets regulation. That regulation was just recently adopted by our board and had not been adopted when we developed the model. So we are working on updating the model to include that regulation as well as we continue to develop our proposal. When we do release our proposal, that proposal will include draft regulatory text that is informed by public input at all of the LCFS workshops that we've had to date, including the one yesterday and the one today. The proposal will be available for public comment for 45 days. And after that, we will present our proposal to our board for their consideration. We expect the board to consider the proposal in fall of this year, and if adopted by the board, the regulation would be effective in early 2024. As we transition to hearing from the community members, I'm excited to hear from you all again tonight. We did have some questions that we wanted to pose to you all, and I think last night we heard that some of these seemed applicable and you guys had other things to share as well, but I want to put them out there again as just kind of a starting point for the discussion tonight. So you can answer them here. You can provide written comment as well. So I'll just go through the questions that we have posed here. So first, should the program prioritize incentives for specific fuels? Which ones and why or why not? How can the state and LCFS better support long-term zero-emission vehicle ownership? What types of fueling and charging infrastructure are needed in your communities? What are some of the barriers you see that are preventing ownership or fueling or charging of zero-emission vehicles? And given that the transition to zero-emission vehicles is going to take some time, what are some of the strategies that we can do in our program now to promote more near-term GHG emission reductions from vehicles and fuel use? What low carbon transportation incentives are most needed, including rebates, lowering utility bills, better transit, lower cost transit, et cetera. And of course, any other feedbacks or ideas that you have to help us in our proposal. So that concludes my presentation. As a reminder, these presentations and the public comment page are available on the Low Carbon Fuel Standard meeting and workshops page. We will be accepting written comments through June 14th. If you would like to share feedback or ask questions in the workshop, please click the raise hand button in the reactions box on the bottom of your screen. When staff call your name, please unmute yourself before you begin talking. And some other items, we are going to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please, and don't cede your time to others. Folks who need interpretation services, we will give you 6 minutes to speak. And we know, and yesterday we saw that some folks are gathered together in one area, and so there might be multiple speakers as one hand is raised. If that's the case, just let us know up front so we know how many of you there are, and so that we don't mute you before we get through all of the speakers. And with that, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time to be here, and I'll turn it over to Cypress to start the Q&A.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Looks like we have a few hands up raised. So the first person we're going to call on tonight is Luciana Jonkman. Luciana, please unmute yourself and begin.
All right, thank you. My name is Luciana. I live in Merced. I left San Francisco area to pursue a love for the dairy community. UC Davis grad and a Cornell University grad with dreams of one day owning a dairy farm. 16 years later, my dream has come true. Today, our family uses climate smart practices across all aspects of our dairy and farming businesses. We appreciate this meeting about the LCFS program held by CARB to help combat misinformation. My mission tonight is to demonstrate that dairy farmers are real people who live and work on their farms and contribute to their communities. We are working to continually improve our world-leading planet smart farming practices. We never stop pursuing excellence in everything we do, from growing kids to crops to jobs in our community. The LCFS program is critical to allowing our community to continue to achieve methane reduction goals set by CARB and to continue to provide year-round high-quality jobs for our community right here in the Central Valley. We use a manure separator to reduce odor and GHGs. This practice also reduces hundreds of metric tons that would otherwise be added to the atmosphere. A reduction in odor and life cycle GHGs is not an addition to the atmosphere. We harness the sun to power nearly 75% of our electric needs with our solar array, which allows others to use their electric air conditioners without a brownout or an electric oxygen machine to breathe. We add power to the electrically needy community that we live in with our solar array. Dairies add electricity. We recycle 100% of our water captured on the farm. We use it to improve our animal health, reduce flies, keep grounds beautiful, and crops growing. After all, we do actually live a few steps away from our cows. We walk on the dirt roads for exercise. We bike and have friends over for barbecues. So do our farm team members. We even have a soccer field and a dairy team that practices right on the farm next to the cows. People want to come to the farm. It's a place to learn about animals, people, technology, see modern equipment and high-tech tools that are used to provide jobs for our community, food for our families, and a thriving livelihood right here on the farm. We have had international guests and dignitaries, homeschool moms, university students, activists, PhDs, GEDs, OSHA, and ICE all visit the farm and left smiling at what they've experienced. We started our farm in 2006 and expanded to milk cows in 2016. We're a first-generation dairy farm. Please don't curse the sweet aroma of our cows with ice cream in your hand. We relentlessly seek innovation to share with our team. We are striving to be a farm that is here for generations to come. Programs like LCFS are tools to allow our family farm to exist. We all like to eat, and with eating comes food production. Food production is not pretty and it's not easy, but the courageous 1% feed the 99. In order to eat, we must have farms. Community farms reduce the environmental impact of eating. We will always feed you regardless of how you feel about where your food comes from. After all, every single day is Earth Day for a farm. Thank you so much for allowing my comments.
Thank you, Luciana. And next we will hear from Tom Knox. Tom, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, I'm Tom Knox of Valley Clean Air Now. We run vehicle programs in San Joaquin Valley, and I wanted to comment about the LCFS holdback programs operated by the utilities and our experience with these for about the last 3 years. Want to really commend the utilities for using this source of funds in really innovative ways to address equity issues around ZEV access for disadvantaged community residents. There was a very thoughtful process in considering the equity implications leading into the launch of the California Clean Fuel Rewards program. I think the lesson that was learned from that was that instead of putting a very large amount of money into relatively small incentives, what might be most impactful for the low-income disadvantaged community residents who are otherwise least likely to buy a ZEV is to instead look at a suite of complementary programs that are kind of filling the gaps that can make it more possible for folks who have the biggest barriers to ZEV use. We've been really encouraged by conversations with various utility staff over the past year or so who are really putting some hard work and thought into what can be done to use the LCFS holdback funds most effectively to do things such as home electric service panel upgrades that enable home charging installs. They've done an excellent job in looking at how to create a more inclusive, equitable process for qualifying for the use ZEV incentives. And so I just wanted to comment positively on our experience with the LCFS holdback program and encourage even more flexibility by the utilities to use these funds creatively to address known gaps in ways, just make it more accessible, more equitable to get ZEVs into the neighborhoods where they most likely would not otherwise be. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate your comments on this, and these are helpful ideas. So as I just wanted to note that we are taking notes on all of the comments tonight, and so if we don't respond to each one, know that we are going to take these back and look at them and discuss them internally. Just happy that you are thinking about those funds, and encourage you to provide additional comments on that if you'd like to. Through the written comment docket. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next, we will hear from Andrew Craig. Andrew, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this workshop. My name is Andrew Craig, and I work for California Bioenergy. I've spent the majority of my career over the past 10+ years working on climate issues, seeking to ensure the planet is a cleaner and more sustainable place for my children and future generations. I started out working for an environmental nonprofit, and I'm proud to have worked closely with CARB, who has been a leader in establishing the policies necessary to incentivize climate protection through the LCFS program. I oversee a team of experts who are proud to say the dairy digester projects they work on are helping to make a difference in the fight against climate change. CARB's development of the LCFS program is a world-class example of how setting strong, consistent policy can yield tremendous results. The state has attracted and incentivized the production of the lowest carbon-intense fuels in the country, which has led to the state far exceeding its carbon intensity targets. The program is predicated on science and a robust set of greenhouse gas accounting principles, which ensures credit generation under the program has the highest level of integrity. Other states have seen this and have followed in California's footsteps to adopt their own programs based on California's model. This is something CARB should be proud of, and frankly, we need more of it if we're going to avoid the worst effects of climate change. And yet, I'm troubled by the conversation we've been having over the last day or two. It's concerning that the very groups which claim to speak for the EJ community are seeking to undo the progress that the state has made. For one, they're suggesting that avoided methane crediting should be eliminated in 2024. But if that were to happen, dairies will have no incentive to operate their digesters, and that methane will be released into the atmosphere as it had before. Public funds invested by the state will have been wasted. It would be devastating from an investment standpoint, not just for digesters, but for other renewable energy industries seeking to invest in the state who may fail to do so if they know their projects could face the same treatment. But most importantly, it would detract from the state's ability to achieve SB 1383 and reduce the ability to achieve deeper emission cuts in the coming decades. We share many of the same goals as the EJ community. We want to solve climate change and benefit the local environment and community. Our projects do that. We also support electric vehicles, and dairy biogas should be viewed as a source of renewable energy to create electricity to charge those vehicles. But in the meantime, while heavy-duty electric trucks are still 10 to 20 years away, we can immediately improve the air quality in EJ communities through the displacement of diesel from CNG trucks. We're making great progress to achieving these reductions while staying on the path laid out by CARB many years ago. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak and to be working for a company that has partnered with the state to bring about substantial greenhouse gas reductions. We look forward to continuing to work with CARB to develop projects that are beneficial to the climate, to the local environment, and the local economy and families that will benefit from jobs and cleaner air. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And next we will hear from Rodolfo Placencia. Rodolfo, please unmute yourself and begin.
Sí, mi nombre es Rodolfo Placencia, vivo en Tipton, California. Trabajo para Dairyland Farms. Tengo muchos años trabajando aquí. Somos un equipo de 31 personas. También estamos trabajando con los paneles solares. Mi nombre es
Rodolfo, could you please speak up or closer to the mic?
Mi nombre es Rodolfo Placencia. Vivo en Tipton, California. Trabajo para una granja. Tengo mucho tiempo trabajando aquí. Estamos trabajando con un equipo de 31 personas. También estamos trabajando con el programa de los paneles, con 4 acres de paneles. También estamos usando mixers eléctricos y tenemos todo con la sombra para apoyar también eso. Es un trabajo que es muy importante para la comunidad, donde habemos muchos que dependemos de este trabajo. Y también apoyamos en eso, tratamos de hacer todo lo mejor posible y dependemos mucho de estos trabajos porque vemos muchas personas trabajando de esto mismo y estamos todos poniendo de nuestra parte para seguir adelante. Donde vivo es mucha granja, mucha agricultura y hay mucho trabajo para nosotros. Aquí es donde estamos apoyando también a eso y es mucho natural. Y estamos conscientes de eso y tratando de colaborar con todo lo que se pueda. Y hay muchas personas que ocupamos de este trabajo también. Estamos apoyando en todo lo que se pueda para seguir adelante. Gracias.
Thank you, Rodolfo. Next, we will hear from
Hey,
Bennett.
Cypress, before you go on to the next commenter, can I just ask that we maybe get a little clarity from Rodolfo? I just want to understand, was he talking about working on a dairy farm or a different agricultural activity?
We would have to unmute him, or he would
Yeah.
need to. Rodolfo, can you unmute yourself again?
Can we go ahead and unmute him?
Yeah, he should be unmuted. Rodolfo, can you unmute yourself?
And then I'd ask the interpreter to hop back on too, just to make sure.
Rodolfo?
Yes, we are looking for a little bit more clarity from you on, do you work on a dairy farm, or what is your activity that you are speaking to?
Sí, yo trabajo en una granja lechera.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just appreciate that, and I appreciate your comments. Thanks for coming tonight. I just wanted to make sure that we were getting the full context of your experiences. Thanks. Cypress, you can call on the next commenter.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next, we will hear from Bennett Sledgers. Bennett, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bennett Slegers. I'm a partner in a 4-generation dairy farm located in the southern San Joaquin Valley. We are proud to have produced nutritious fresh milk, butter, and cheese for over 80 years in California. My wife and I are very grateful that my son and his family have chosen to carry on the tradition and now live on our dairy farm and work there every day. We have had a methane digester on our dairy for over 6 years now. We are reducing methane by approximately 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. We have also installed 2 solar projects, one for our milking barn and free stalls, and one for our farm. We also feed many human food byproducts to our cows, which if they were not fed by dairies would wind up in landfills somewhere. Some examples of those are culled carrots, culled citrus, wheat mill run in making bread, almond hulls, just a variety of byproducts. Over 45 families in the Buttonwillow, Shafter, and Lost Hills area depend on us for employment. The low carbon fuel standard is critical to the continued financing of dairy digester products such as ours. Please help us as California dairy farms lead the way in developing climate smart farming practices by not changing the rules on us and continuing the LCFS program. I thank you all for your time tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bennett. Next, we will hear from Declan Mattern. Declan, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Declan Madden, and I'm here representing Yosemite Clean Energy. For those of you who don't know, Yosemite Clean Energy is committed to using forest and agricultural wood waste to create carbon negative hydrogen through gasification of waste biomass and carbon sequestration here in the state of California, thus increasing energy security, decreasing the likelihood of catastrophic wildfire through forest conservation, and providing solutions for farmers. We're recipients of state grants, both from the Department of Conservation and CAL FIRE, and are grateful for the state support for using wood waste to produce renewable fuels. We're making a few requests today regarding the LCFS. First, we ask CARB to adopt a clear method of life cycle analysis that includes avoided emissions for biofuels created through forestry waste. So the LCFS reflects the true life cycle benefits biofuels have on the environment. Currently, credits are not awarded for avoided emissions. Our process, if used statewide, would reduce carbon emissions by millions of tons by removing forestry waste that would otherwise decompose or burn, releasing greenhouse gases and particulates into our atmosphere. The Lawrence Livermore National Lab Study, Getting to Neutral, highlights how crucial prioritizing waste biomass conversion is to California's decarbonization goals, as hydrogen produced through this process is the only legitimate way to create carbon negative energy. Considering avoided emissions is a critical component of accounting for the legitimate carbon negativity of biohydrogen. Second of all, YCE requests CARB prioritize energy produced in or delivered to the state. We're producing hydrogen locally here in California along major transport routes. Prioritizing local energy sources further reduces our CI score by minimizing carbon produced via energy transportation. It also keeps the co-benefits of biofuels in state, including avoided emissions, wildfire reduction, watershed health. Third, YCE requests for the carbon intensity reduction of 20% by 2030 to be increased to 30 or preferably 40 in accordance with carbon reductions required by SB 32 and SB 1383. If California is serious about carbon reduction and preventing climate change, our goals must be drastically increased, and the industry is capable of meeting this demand. But we do understand that 40% is a large ask, so we're prepared to provide for this or any lesser goal. Considering what I've just stated, these avoided emissions, localized production, and increased CI reduction will ensure California is on track to decarbonization. Further, promoting tested hydrogen production from wood waste will have numerous co-benefits, most importantly, promoting forestry health. We hope you seriously consider our suggestions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Declan. Right now, we have about 13 hands raised, and we will hear next from Amanda Parsons de Rosier. Amanda, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, thank you for your time this evening and for hearing my remarks. I'm here representing Global Clean Energy, a California-based renewable fuel innovator. The EJ plan presented tonight proposed setting rules that may restrict the use of crop-based feedstocks for our state's renewable fuels. While we hope that CARB does not limit crop-based feedstocks because meaningful change will require an all of the above solution, should CARB implement crop-based feedstock restrictions, we urge you to exempt intermediate crops that do not cost land use change from any of these proposed restrictions. Our company specializes in a crop called camelina. It and other intermediate crops provide ultra low carbon finished fuels, are non-food, use low water, and do not cause land use change because they are grown on existing farmland during periods where land would otherwise sit idle or fallow. Intermediate crops grow between traditional crop cycles on otherwise empty land, provide cover crop benefits to the land on which they're grown, and do not displace main crops. They also provide additive economic revenues for rural agricultural communities while strengthening our nation's domestic energy supply. Our clean energy future will require diverse low carbon solutions, and renewable fuels made from traditional crops as well as intermediate crops like camelina can play a key role in propelling California toward reaching carbon neutrality in 2045 responsibly. Renewable fuels, as you are aware, work as a drop-in replacement for traditional fuels, but with far fewer emissions and no infrastructure changes necessary. They will play a key role in achieving our clean air goals. We urge you to acknowledge that not all crop feedstocks are created equal. And should you propose feedstock restrictions, please exempt intermediate crops like camelina from any of those proposed restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, we will hear from Sabino Herrera. Sabino, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. My name is Sabino. I'm proud to be one of the few Hispanic dairy producers in California. I am a doctor of veterinary medicine from UC Davis and now dairying for over 20 years. As such, I'm responsible for about 70 employees, and that translates to 70 families. These are local Hispanic families. My investment and commitment to my employees, my dairy, my family, and the environment are in jeopardy if we reduce or discontinue LCFS credits to methane digesters. My employees and I are excited to reduce 25,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. We have also invested in solar panels and are in line for electric mixers. When it comes to sustainability, California dairies are all in. LCFS credits are not our main income, but it's our way of being responsible. I want to thank you for listening to my comments and let you consider maintaining LCFS credits like they were proposed to us so that we can enjoy and be stewards of the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sabino. Next, we will hear from Cornell Kasbergen. Cornell, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. My name is Cornell Kasbergen. Our dairy farm is in Tulare County. We are a family business that was started by my parents who immigrated to the United States in the 50s. I, along with my wife, son, daughter-in-law, and 45 dedicated employees, operate our family business. Our son and his family live on the dairy farm. Our dairy farm has been operating a digester since June of 21. I've listened to the past two sessions to some interesting comments regarding the dairy industry, many not supported by facts. The digester program in California is the envy of the world. It has been a great public-private partnership that recognized an issue and came up with a solution that puts California on a path to meet its climate goals. Now some organizations are advocating for a change. Many family farms have made significant investments in this technology. Making a change to the LCFS program would be a betrayal of the commitment by CARB to the California dairy industry. Consideration for CARB to make would be extend the time commitment for the LCFS program. This would allow smaller farms to participate in the digester program. The California dairy industry has been and will continue to be the leader in innovation. As I said in my earlier comments, the California digester program is the envy of the world. Altering the LCFS program would be a giant leap backward in California. California is meeting its climate goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cornell. Next, we will hear from Colin Murphy. Colin, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, my name is Colin Murphy. I'm the Deputy Director for the Policy Institute for Energy, Environment, and the Economy at UC Davis. I want to thank staff for putting on these workshops, as well as the Michael Wara and the team at Stanford for their presentation. I wanted to do two things with this comment, and my apologies to those of you who were listening last night and are going to hear basically the same things I said yesterday, but I recognize there's a lot of different people on this workshop. First, we recently put out some research a few months ago where we evaluated the air quality impacts of an expansion of Oregon's Clean program, and this had similar findings to an air quality study we did in California looking at a portfolio of clean energy technologies, and found in both cases that by moving away from petroleum into other sources of energy, again, including the equivalent of the LCFS in Oregon, we not only saw air quality improve, but the disparities in air pollutant exposure along both racial and income-based lines decreased. And so we've seen a net equity enhancing effect of these programs. Obviously, does not mean it's a complete solution, but at least progress is moving in the right direction. I'll be sharing these studies on the comment that we'll submit to the written comment docket, and certainly happy to have anybody reach out to me and we can share them as well. We recognize there's still a lot of work to do in this space, that the solution, the progress we've made so far is nowhere near a complete solution. We've recently submitted funding applications, and we're optimistic we're going to start a program this fall where we want to bring members of environmental justice focused organizations together to spend several months really getting into the weeds of the kind of modeling required to really make fully informed decisions on the LCFS, to sort of help you see the world the way the models see it, and then help us see the world the way you see it. And the goal is to develop more equity-focused LCFS provisions and tools that can help really start identifying the potential benefits in actions and bring a lot more science and transparency to this process. So like I said, we recently submitted funding applications. We're optimistic we'll be able to start this project in the fall, and we're certainly happy to talk to anybody, both people who might be interested in joining the group and helping us work on this development of a more equity-focused LCFS and tools to support that, as well as those who simply have thoughts or ideas on how that project might be able to be conducted in a way that maximizes its benefits. So again, my name is Colin Murphy from the Policy Institute at UC Davis. You can reach me at cwmurphy@ucdavis.edu, and we'll be submitting written comments with links to a lot of these resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colin. Next, we will hear from Ty Corwinder. Ty, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you for this opportunity to comment today. My name is Ty Cornwinder. I'm a resident of Tulare County, and more specifically, the city of Tulare. Myself and extended family have lived and grown up in the Central Valley. I am currently an employee of CalBio, where I work closely with our dairy partners. Prior to my position at CalBio, I worked for SoCalGas on their renewable natural gas team for many years. SoCalGas is where I met the CalBio team. And I was excited to join because CalBio is making a difference in California climate. And I personally wanted to leave a legacy, a positive legacy on California and in my job and opportunities related to employment. CARB has recognized that although dairies are a source of methane, they're vital to the economy of the Central Valley, and they developed a program to encourage methane capture where the dairies could accomplish this. This is exactly what CalBio has achieved along with our dairies. This will continue to happen if the avoided methane crediting is preserved. We are currently reducing 1 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year, with a goal of upping that to 2 million within 3 years. I want to focus now on the benefits of digesters and those that they have on the local air quality. Looking above and beyond the capture of methane, digesters capture and remove hydrogen sulfide, or H2S. This prevents odors associated with dairies, which is a big accomplishment. I personally, living in Tulare, have noticed a significant improvement in the odors around the community of Tulare. Digesters also prevent the creation of particulate matter. We agree with the EJ advocates. PM is dangerous. Digesters, though, greatly reduce particulate matter. On a small dairy of 1,800 cows with a digester, the impact of removing the particulate matter equates to removing 6,800 cars from the road per year. Now, if we expand that to the 200,000 milk cows that are operating digester projects that CalBio operates, we are reducing roughly the PM level of 700,000 cars a year. That is only CalBio. There are other developers doing very similar things. So I think we could easily double that number. This is a significant improvement to local air quality for local residents, including our farmers. In addition, by using dairy RNG in trucks and displacing diesel, we reduce nitrous oxide, or NOx, by 90%, another dangerous pollutant. Our projects are reducing NOx by approximately 180,000 cars per year. I personally am proud of the fact that we are making air cleaner for our neighbors and other community residents. We are also proud that we are ahead of schedule in methane reductions for the state of California. And I thank CARB and our dairy partners for this amazing accomplishment and the great future as long as LCFS credits remain in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Next, we will hear from Betsy Hunter-Benz. Betsy, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Hunter-Benz, and I am an employee for a few dairies in Kern County, assisting with their environmental compliance. I have been working for and with Kern County dairy farm families for over 20 years. I have lived on or within a quarter mile of a dairy my entire adult life. And I am also a single mother who have been raising my child at that location. I see all of the climate smart practices that dairy farm families are doing every day to ensure that the environment, the air, the water, the soil, and the employees are protected. Dairy farm families want to have their farms be a multi-generational business, and that means protecting the air, the water, the soil, and the people so that the next generation can be stewards of that farm business. Dairy farmers and engineers figured out how to capture methane from dairy farms and to convert it into usable fuel sources. Dairy manure digesters are expensive systems to install and maintain. The incentives through the LCFS are necessary to encourage more dairy farmers to install these digesters. Financial incentives are used for the average citizen to purchase electric vehicles, install solar panels on their homes. And I highly encourage that the LCFS incentive programs are continued so that there is a pathway for more dairy farm families to install digesters. These digesters are huge projects capturing hundreds of thousands of metric tons of methane and thusly the value of what they are doing to improve the environment and the air quality calls for a reciprocal incentive. Don't be fooled. The LCFS isn't lining the pockets of farmers. The incentives are simply an offset for the multi-million-dollar investments and costs of installing and maintaining these digesters. California dairy farms are heavily regulated by multiple agencies. Dairy farmers are not environmental villains. Dairy farmers have figured out how to remove hundreds of thousands of metric tons of pollutants from the air and should be allowed to continue to have the LCFS incentives as they are. I wholeheartedly encourage CARB to continue the LCFS incentives as they are for dairy digesters, so dairy farm families can continue to make such huge reductions in climate pollutants. Don't just take the dairy community nor the EJ's community's word for it for what is happening on farm. Actually visit farms to see for yourselves all the different ways dairy farmers are implementing new and better practices to improve the environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Betsy. Next, we will hear from Rodney Camper. Rodney, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. This is Rodney Camper. I'm a dairy farmer from Fresno County. Second generation, and our third and fourth generation are already on the ground working with us. We've been in the business for almost 65 years. I'd just like to say I've heard many comments this evening, and it's interesting. California, as it stands, has been told that we're the 5th largest economy in the world, just the state of California, which is amazing. And agriculture is a big part of that, producing all the food. But let's focus on dairy just a bit here. It's interesting how animal agriculture is always a target of some people that call themselves environmentalists, and yet agriculture in general, including dairy, we're the biggest environmentalists, because if we didn't take care of the land, protect the water, and all these things, we'd be out of business long ago. We care about all these things and we work hard with them. The LCF credits with digesters is only one tool, and only some dairies use that. Many of them have solar systems. They have alternative manure management practices, which handle the manure drier and better and reduce methane. There's some feed additives that can reduce enteric methane. The industry, like we've been told earlier this evening, utilizes many byproducts for feeding the cattle. As much as 40% of our feed rations can be byproducts that don't end up in landfills. So you talk about environmentalists, that's what we are. California has been working hard in being a leader in climate change, and this is good. And electricity is one thing, but there's no way the 5th largest economy in the world can survive on a bunch of windmills and solar panels. And if we think we're fooling ourselves because we're just going to import fossil produced electricity from other states, we haven't solved anything. We need to continue to support. Everybody knows that the LCFS program and the dairy digester has been the biggest methane reduction, the biggest air quality benefit in recent years, bang for the buck of anything else that's out there. One other thing I like to say, if you really want to see some backup data and clear analysis of this, you need to look at the Clear Center research out of UC Davis that's led by Dr. Frank Mitloner. A lot of good advice there. One other thing I'd just like to throw in is, if California is we can't save the world. We got to do our part. Each state, each country has to do their part. And it bothers me because I don't have all the statistics, but somehow or another, the way the program's set up, too much LCFS money goes to out-of-state dairy digesters and other places. If you follow the money, too much money gets sent out of state and should be used right here in our own state for many projects, including the dairy digesters. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. And next we will hear from Phoebe Seaton. Phoebe, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, thanks so much. I just have a process question. In the slides presented, it looks like a very, very fast kind of start to finish in terms of when the draft regulations are going to go out to when the board is going to meet in September. Will the board consider the LCFS regulations at a subsequent meeting, or will the September meeting be the only meeting when the regulations are in front of them? And if so, how will the board provide meaningful input into the development of those regs?
Hi, Phoebe. Yeah, thanks for your question. So just by way of process, for rulemaking development, we obviously have to follow the Administrative Procedures Act, and that means that we have to post for public comment our rulemaking proposal for 45 days for public comment. We have to notice a board meeting for the board to take action on our rulemaking proposal. The board can direct additional changes in response to comments that come in, or in response to their own objectives that may trigger a subsequent 15-day comment period and potentially an additional board meeting. So that is, part of the process. We also have to do an environmental analysis, of course, and respond to comments that come in on the environmental analysis. So that's all to say that historically what CARB has done has included a 45-day comment period in EA, of course, to APA, public comments, board discussion, and that has led sometimes to 2 board meetings. And then just Phoebe, real quick, did you have other comments or questions?
I didn't. I mean, I did. That was my main question. We do urge that. I mean, there have been a lot of comments here, a lot of disagreement, and this is a big, very, very, very big policy and a big component of California's climate portfolio, and urge at least 2 meetings for the board to consider any changes.
Because I have the mic, I'm wondering if maybe Betsy or Rodolfo are still online, and if we could unmute them. I actually have a question for the 2 of them, and I don't know if they're still here. I think I saw Betsy on. She just gave a couple of comments.
Betsy is on. I'm going to unmute her. Betsy, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, and same with Rodolfo too, since for both Betsy and Rodolfo, they indicated that they work on dairies, and I want to ask a question, something that we've gotten frequently, which is a question about the installation of the digesters and the incentives, and whether those digesters are really driving additional expansions in dairy herd size. It looks like Rodolfo's offline, so maybe this, Betsy, you can help me here. If you don't want to respond, totally fine. But
you don't even have to finish the statement. No, dairy farms are not expanding because they are putting in a digester. That's a very strong fallacy. And it's my understanding that the digesters are built to the capacity of the farm, and they don't encompass potential herd expansion. There's a number that goes into it, and that's your animals on site at the time that the contracts are signed. That is my understanding. And as I'm looking around my neighborhood, because I can see about 3 dairies from my office right now, and I can drive down the street and see 5 more that actually have digesters, they're not expanding. They're maintaining the herds that they initially started with.
Okay, and then I appreciate it, and I appreciate you jumping back on. It's I just, one of the other questions, and this is just a request that we've made for anyone in this space really is to also, if you can, and this goes to you, Betsy, and to others too that are on the call, to really help, supply data or information to us to help provide some additional evidence associated with whether the dairies are expanding or not in response to the LCFS and the installation of the digesters. And I figured I'd take the opportunity to ask you directly, since you said you've worked on some of these products. I really appreciate the response, but we're also very interested in people giving us some of that information, both anecdotally and kind of broadly across the state, and any data that they can provide to support it. So thank you, Betsy. I appreciate it. All right, and Phoebe, I see your hand's still up, and I did ask you if you had any additional questions. So if you'd like to just weigh in really quickly, I'll give you the opportunity, and then we'll move on to the next comments.
I mean, I'll ask, since you kind of opened this up, does CARB in the kind of implementation of the program track fuel volumes as part of the annual review process?
Right. So in order to be credited under the LCFS annually, the RNG producers need to produce fuel volumes for the gas that they're injecting into the pipeline or using to generate electricity. So yes, we collect fuel volumes from the fuel pathway holders as part of annual reporting.
That's it. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Cypress, if we could go to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we will hear from Darren Suarez. Darren, please unmute yourself and begin. Darren Suarez, please unmute yourself and begin.
It looks like you're off mute, but we still can't hear you, Darren. Cypress, let's try him again in a couple minutes.
Okay, no problem. Darren, we'll come back to you. Next, we will hear from Mars Gist. Mars, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mars Gist. I'm a resident of Tulare County and the Director of Operations at CalBio. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I've lived in the Central Valley my entire life. My family, in fact, has farmed in this very spot that I am sitting for almost the last 150 years. I have a passion for the environment, and I even designed and built my own underground solar home that requires very little energy input to operate and even charge my electric car. At CalBio, I work with a team of about 40 people. Many are from the oil fields. Most never went to college, and they're just great people. As a team, we have two objectives every day. The first is to capture all of the methane that we can from the dairy and use it beneficially to transport cars and to generate clean electricity. We work to make sure manure doesn't enter any open lagoons, make sure there's no leaks in the cover, and watch and measure the process carefully. We are also proud that we improve local air quality. The smelly and dangerous compound that I talked about in his talk, hydrogen sulfide, we destroy that with a natural bacteria that eats it and converts it. We then use a secondary process that produces sulfur, elemental sulfur, and is a good soil supplement. The result is a massive reduction to the particulate matter for the dairy team, our team, and the neighbors. My neighborhood has about the worst air quality in the United States, and we're doing what we can to improve it. In addition to producing RNG, we are also at the forefront of generating clean electricity. We have installed the first fuel cell on dairy biogas in the United States. In fact, it could be in the world, at the Bar 20 dairy. up in Kerman. There are basically no pollutants in this process, and it's a good, clean California technology. We're also working on other pioneering new technologies as we speak. If you'd like to learn a little more, reach out to me, mgist@calbioenergy.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mars. And next we will hear from Ron Locke. Ron, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. My name is Ron Locke. My wife and I operate Top of the Morn Farms in Tulare, California, which is in Tulare County, which is dairy capital of the world. I want to make one comment real quick. Our EIR in Tulare County is capped on cows. So there is no expansion in Tulare County, dairy capital of the world. So the digesters are not encouraging or funding dairy expansion. We are in the process of just getting ready to start our digester project. I have trouble with this acronym, the LCFS credits are changed, we will not be able to afford to put our digester in. At Top of the Morn Farms, my wife and kids, we live on the farm. Dairy in California is extremely hard and very expensive, but it's one of the best places in the world to live and to farm. We are continually looking for new green energy, or green technologies. We want to be good stewards of our land. We want to take care of our water. We want to take care of our air, and we want to take care of our soil. We employ 30 employees, which are 30 local families. And the difference about a dairy job versus some other agricultural jobs, which they're all important, but a dairy job is 365 days a year, right? It's not seasonal work. So our families, they're the main breadwinners of their family. And so there's 30 families out there that depend on our small farm to stay financially viable and to be able to support their homes. One of our biggest concerns, my concern, is the electrical grid in California. So we are also in the process of putting in a solar project. I think it was last summer or maybe the summer before, our governor in the middle of summer, when our electrical grid was strained, he asked not to charge electric vehicles. I don't know if anybody remembers that. So I am extremely concerned, and we talk a lot about electrification of fleets. Where is that electricity going to come from? That's a big concern for me and my family. I'm not against electric vehicles, but I just want to know how that grid is going to be beefed up to handle it. And also, what are we going to do with these retired batteries? But again, we want to put our digester in, but if these credits change, financially, we're not going to be able to do that. So thank you for your time, and we hope we keep the program going as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And next we will hear from Julia May. Julia, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you. I'm Julia May, Senior Scientist at Communities for a Better Environment, an environmental justice organization in the refinery communities of Wilmington and Richmond, as well as the transportation impacted communities of Southeast LA and East Oakland. It's not enough to state that the LCFS is robust. You can't just state it. The calculation errors in pollution trading programs like LCFS and cap and trade, for that matter, have been compellingly demonstrated by numerous universities, experts, and community environmental justice organizations, also including the excellent Stanford University presentation tonight. we appreciate that CARB is considering updates to correct these major errors. We also appreciate the farmers, but we need better ways to support them. We can't continue to include all these errors in the LCFS. Currently, the LCFS supports higher subsidies for avoided methane in industrial dairies than it does for vehicle electrification. Vehicle electrification should be the highest priority for transportation fuels. It directly replaces fossil fuels. It does not emit smog precursors or GHGs, in contrast with biofuels. And incidentally, the decarbonization of the electricity grid has been one of the biggest successes in California. It's continuing. It's been going on and starting out at 10%, 20%, 33%. It's planned with, it has clear plans to get to 100% decarbonized electricity in California, and there's a clear path for that. So vehicle electrification should be the highest priority. Currently, the avoided methane credits are bought by oil refineries, allowing them to continue with business as usual, hurting frontline communities through emitting benzene, NOx, SOx, H2S, and more on a continuing basis. Business as usual at refineries, greenwashed by shoddy pollution credits, also allows refineries and the fuels they make to make it impossible for many regions in California to meet Clean Air Act health standards. And refineries and the fuels they make are literally destroying the planet through climate disaster. We have the solution. The refineries are trying to get even more shoddy pollution credits, but instead we need directly phasing out fossil fuels, including refineries, oil drilling, and gasoline and diesel transportation, while electrifying transportation and decarbonizing electricity. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We've got a number of folks still to go. I see about a dozen people. I'm going to ask that we limit the comments to 2 minutes, and then if folks still have comments to provide and we have time at the end, you can re-raise your hand, but I would like to get through all of the hands that are raised. So apologies for changing the amount of time, but I would like to get through everyone. So Cypress, can you change the time clock to 2 minutes for folks?
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. We will be moving on to Stephen Hatley. Stephen, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to comment tonight. My name is Stephen Hatley, and I'm the CFO of Moss Energy Works, who is one of the leading dairy digester developers and operators in the state of California. My comments are mainly in response to Professor Zuara's recommendation to eliminate voided methane crediting for dairy fuels in 2024. Our company has spent the last decade partnering with dozens of family-owned dairies and also state agencies like the California Energy Commission and the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Together, we have invested tens of millions of dollars in dairy digesters in response to the state's goals to mitigate dairy emissions and lower the carbon intensity of vehicle fuels. When we show up to these dairies, the emissions are already occurring, and we build our project specifically to capture those existing emissions and convert them to carbon negative vehicle fuels, leading to substantial greenhouse emission reductions each year. One of the major reasons that we've been able to make these investments and build and operate the dozens of dairy digesters we have online in the state today is because of the LCFS program and its avoided methane treatment of the biogas that we are voluntarily capturing. If CARB were to remove the avoided methane crediting that is afforded to capturing these dairy emissions, not only would that make all future investments in dairy digesters no longer make economic sense in the state, but it would also mean that digester projects already online could no longer afford to operate, and those projects would have to be shut down. This would be a tragic environmental and economic setback for the state of California and its residents. The way the LCFS program currently treats dairy emissions works, and I would highly recommend allowing the program to continue to work for the long-term benefit of California, who has already proven to be an environmental leader and an example to all states. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And next we will hear from Corey Hartwig. Corey, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you very much. By the way, there are two of us that would like to speak tonight. I'm going to go first, and then my wife is going to go. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment today at this workshop this evening. My name is Corey Hartwig, and I am a Bakersfield resident. I'm a registered California professional engineer in chemical and mechanical engineering. I'm the engineering manager for PCL Industrial Services, which works closely with Central Valley Dairies, designing and constructing over 70 of these methane capture units from Kern County to Merced County, with injection of methane into the utility gas lines and generating electricity for renewable vehicles. In my 28 years of working, I've not seen anything as innovative as these dairy digester methane capture projects. Not only as a professional engineer, I'm a father of 3 children that live in California, 2 grandchildren that live here in Bakersfield, and I'm very focused on air quality for my family, for which this is the reason I strongly encourage CARB to continue with the LCFS programs. I now turn this over to my wife, which is a lifelong resident of the San Joaquin Valley.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Hartwig, and I just wanted to share with you, as a citizen and someone who has lived in the San Joaquin Valley since they were 3 years old, I have seen some significant changes in the air quality in San Joaquin Valley over the last few years. And I must say that I'm very proud that my husband's on this project, because when he told me when this project came along not too long ago, I was like, are you serious? And he said, yes, we're going to capture the methane gas from dairies. And I was like, that is so awesome and innovative. And just imagine how much better the air quality is going to be right here in our own backyard. And we're also employing our locals. We're keeping our locals in this area. We're bringing the economy stronger than ever. Farming is a huge thing in the San Joaquin Valley, and I'd love to see it get back to where it was, grow and get stronger. I do not see absolutely any negative that comes from these projects. I see nothing but pride in what these guys are doing out there. Men and women, these programs, these projects, I see so many benefits. And it's not just biogas, but that's where we're at and what we're discussing today. So that's where I'm trying to keep my focus. But I am a resident. I have lived here since I was 3 years old. I've been here almost 50 years. I think this is a great idea. I've seen zero negatives, and I hope that this is taken with as much passion as I have to give on it.
So thank you on behalf of Corey and Vanessa. Thank you very much for hearing our comments tonight.
Thank you, Corey and Vanessa. And now we will hear from Dixie Martino. Dixie, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Dixie Martino. I'm a lifelong San Joaquin Valley resident, and I work directly with dairies throughout the Central Valley as a sustainability specialist for California Dairies Incorporated. California Dairies is a member-owned cooperative with over 300 California farms. We're the largest butter manufacturer in the country and largest skim milk exporter in the world. 33% of our milk is produced on a farm utilizing a digester. And this number will soon grow to 49% as digesters and construction come online. All of these dairies are currently and hope to continue utilizing the LCFS program. Through my role, I assess the carbon intensity score of each dairy farm and research technologies and practices to reduce emissions. I, along with our entire membership, strongly support the state's incentive programs to reduce dairy methane. California dairy farm families are the world leaders in sustainable farming practices and producing nutritious, planet-smart dairy products that consumers enjoy. Our dairy farms are reducing greenhouse gas emissions, generating renewable energy, and providing nutrients for healthy soils and plants, and producing carbon negative transportation fuel. Incentive funding has been instrumental to our efforts. And we support continued expansion of incentives such as the LCFS in California. Capturing methane with the dairy digester is just one of the strategies that California dairy farmers are using to reduce methane. They're also investing in efforts to continue reducing emissions through increased efficiency, methane avoidance, through improved manure management and enteric methane reductions, and further research. The U.S. dairy industry is committed to an ambitious net zero initiative, aiming to achieve carbon neutrality or better by 2050. California dairy family farms are contributing greatly to this goal and are on a path to achieve climate neutrality within the next 5 years. I'd like to thank CARB for hosting this community forum and ask that you prioritize our agricultural community's comments made tonight while drafting this proposal.
Thank you. Looking at the number of commenters, and we do have a fairly hard stop tonight at 8 p.m. So I think we're going to have to ask folks to no more hands raised, and we're going to ask that you keep your comments short if possible, and we can continue on. Thanks, Cypress.
Thank you, Cheryl. And next we'll hear from Tim Foster. Tim, please unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Foster. I'm the director of the College of Sequoias Foundation in Visalia, California, and I'm a lifelong resident here in Visalia, California. At the College of Sequoias, we have a unique relationship with California Bio that invests some resources from CARB incentives to construct dairy digesters into the education of those who may join in the fight for cleaner air. CARB incentives for constructing dairy digesters are making real differences in the future of our air quality. Our speakers have highlighted these immediate benefits. In addition to the marked reduction in pollutants and expansion of renewable fuel sources, this incentive program has lifelong benefits. Our partnership with California Bioenergy has resulted in some of those incentive dollars being invested in the College of Sequoia students that are pursuing education in agriculture, biology, engineering, and other fields that will directly impact future solutions towards air quality. 15 scholarships were awarded this year alone. We are funding many scholarships now and building an endowment fund that will provide scholarships in perpetuity. We understand more solutions are needed in the efficiencies and sustainability of all solutions CARB is pursuing. Please make these current incentives continue so that we can continue to make long-term investments in increasing those educated in these needed fields. Doing so will allow us to help ensure more capable individuals will join in developing long-term refinement of processes and new innovations into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we will hear from Alec Grassel. Alec, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, and thank you for putting this forum together. I'm a third generation to be born, raised, and reside in Visalia in Tulare County. And just as a local community member, it's been exciting to see the various dairy digester projects, evolve and pop up around Visalia and Tulare County. And it's been exciting to see what that, positively impacts the local air quality. So I'll make it quick, but I just wanted to say as a local community member that it's been great to see what the LCFS program can do locally and to improve our air quality here in Visalia and Tulare County. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. And next we will hear from Reishi Aki. Reishi, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, my name is Rashi Aki. I am the CEO of Agrid Energy. Agrid Energy builds dairy digesters we are in 6 different states right now. We've got about a dozen dairy farms. We've got about 5 operational projects. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the leadership that California has shown. And I think what California has done with the LCFS program and the avoided methane calculations and making it extremely scientific is created a path that others can follow. And I see a little bit of danger in changing that program because as other states are trying to follow California, if California changes the rules, then the other states won't really, but they would just jump to wherever California is today. And I fear that, avoided methane question will get short-circuited a little bit if we make decisions and change those rules. The second point I wanted to make was digesters are fantastic. Manure digesters, along with food waste, are fantastic ways to divert food waste that go typically into a landfill. And so there is additional benefit of avoided methane that I know that LCFS could make the program easier to figure out how food waste calculations can be done. But we've done all our projects with food waste. They're all co-digestion, and they really are solving a local problem of not just methane from manure, but also methane from food waste. And the third point I just want to make, I know there's a fear that the dairies are expanding because of LCFS. I just wanted to say that 1970, there were more than 600 dairy farms. In 2017, there were 40,000. And today there are 30,000 dairy farms. Dairy farms are shrinking at such a fast pace. And these are family farms, and families get impacted by all these decisions. Our goal, at least at Agri Energy, is to continue to sustain small dairy farms and small agricultural families that have dedicated their life to it and making them more viable. And I think support from LCFS and not changing CARB would really help us, not just in California, but the rest of the country too. Thank you.
Thank you, Reishi. And next we will hear from Sarah Gonzalez. Sarah, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez, and I've worked in LCFS and manure digesters for about 8 years now. And I think that there's kind of this misconception that the LCFS is something that the dairy digesters are going to greatly benefit from, while more or less the state benefits from it. Digesters do not allow dairies to expand. That is a local permitting issue. LCFS has nothing to do with it. And I just want to say that dairy digesters offer a way to have multiple ways to combat climate change. Instead of just looking to electricity, methane can be used in multiple ways. And just for anyone out there, if you think that there's flaws in the system, you can think that, but from the outside, it's easy to say that, but this is a very stringent program. ARB does a very good job at making sure that we are all doing the right thing. So it's a very good program that offers a lot of benefits. And I think that it's just something that we should really strive to keep. That's all.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we will hear from Allison White. Allison, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you. I am Allison White. I am 29 years old, and I'm a fourth-generation dairy farmer. My great-grandfather started our dairy in Atwater, California, and I lived on the dairy my entire life. My dad, uncle, grandpa, and I are often talking about the next steps we're taking on our sustainability journey, and I know that many dairy families have the same conversation. Our dairy uses a manure separator to improve the handling and storage of the manure to avoid and reduce methane production. This helps to build healthy soils, it protects our water resources, and it greatly reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers. We also feed numerous food byproducts that would otherwise go to landfills. We recycle 100% of our water on farm, and we use the sun through solar panels to generate power. Our dairy provides many jobs on our farm, with some employees that work for us for over 30 years. Our dairy is permitted by the state of California for only the number of cows we currently have, like all dairies are. So we are not able to grow our dairy any bigger than we currently are. Therefore, making the most out of the land and water we have is crucial. In order for California dairies to continue to strive for the 2050 goal, we need LCFS funding to help with these dairy digesters to continue to capture methane. This incentive funding has been instrumental in our efforts, and we hope you hear us when we ask to keep the access to this funding so we can continue to take care of our soil, water, and air to reach our net zero initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Next, we will hear from John and Linda Moons. John and Linda, please unmute yourself and begin. John and Linda Moons, please unmute yourself and begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go. Thank you, Cypress. My name is John Moons. I am the dairy owner involved in reducing 20,000 metric tons of CO2 each year with a digester that has been operating since 2021. This is a successful initiative that combats the quality of air we breathe. I've had the blessing of being married with 5 children, living on the land we care for. We border the towns of Visalia, Hanford, and Tulare. I've heard many comments through these last 2 days about living in this environment. I would not trade my community, the environment, and the people we enjoy every day for anything. I can see my cows out my back window every day I rise. By the way, it smells a lot better now that the digester is in, to throw that in. Along with my wife, Linda, and now my son, Austin, and his wife, we operate 2 dairies that employ 50 employees or families. Because we believe that the dairy industry in California has always been at the forefront of innovation, our plan is, again, to install another digester on our second dairy to continue to be part of the lowest carbon footprint dairy industry in the world. Also, with our 1 megawatt solar field that was built in 2015 and our 1.6 megawatt solar field that is in the works, in combination with the digesters, I can stand next to any dairyman outside of California and know that we in California have answered the call to do something. Our plans to go forward on the second digester will be hindered or scrapped if CARB decides to end our partnership together with the dairy industry. We do not need more regulations, we need more solutions. And the joint investment in the capturing of this methane is a path to that end. And what is that end? A net zero initiative for the dairy industry to be carbon neutral or negative by 2050. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. And next we will hear from Lance Mau. Lance, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just referring to one of the questions from earlier as far as growth of dairy cows in California. If you guys ever want to look that information up, NASS, which is the government agency, puts out production by state every month. And one place good to find it is Cornell University's. If you just Google milk production, Cornell University, you'll find it. And back in 2019, there was 1,726,000 milk cows in California. Now there's 1,721,000. So there's actually 5,000 less cows than there was 4 years ago. The number stayed just very consistent. So I think one of your biggest challenges is to kind of wade through the misinformation, and some of it may be unintentional, a lot of it may be intentional, but I'm a dairy farmer. Me and my wife, I've lived on the dairy for 46 years. We moved a year ago. So my son and daughter-in-law and their 2 boys could move into our house. He's a partner on the dairy now, and he's 3rd generation. My grandsons will be 4th generation. And I think you're getting a lot of misinformation because people have agendas, and a lot of times their agendas aren't legit. They, a lot of times, just do not like animal agriculture in general. But we've put in, in the millions of dollars towards this digester project that we have on our dairy, and have seen all the improvements that it's produced. As so many others have stated, we have solar. We're adding another solar site. We feed all the byproducts to our cows. We can go through all that information, and it's all good information. Dairymen are great for the environment, but I think the challenge you guys are going to have is making sure all the information you're getting is correct and not being twisted for different agendas that are not being truthful. So anyhow, we try really hard to be stewards of the land and of our environment. And I think you can see the improvement in the air quality in the valley over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. And next we will hear from Darren Suarez. Darren, please unmute yourself and begin.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Darren Soares, and I have lived in the San Joaquin Valley all of my life, currently residing in Turlock. I grew up just outside of Turlock city limits, neighboring several dairy farm families, and witnessed firsthand how dairy farmers cared for their animals and pioneered sustainable farming practices to build healthy soils and protect natural resources. More recently, I have seen these dairy farm families continue to invest in projects and practices that continue to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and generate renewable energy. In addition to being leaders in environmental stewardship, these dairy farm families provide significant support and contributions to our local communities. As a lifelong Valley resident, I fully support the continued incentivizing of installation of digester projects and our local dairy farms who are installing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And next we will hear from Bianca Lopez. Bianca, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bianca, and my ancestors have been on this land for over 500 years and have experienced many years or that many amount of years of violence from ideas and practices that claim to be good for the people and advancement of the people. Unfortunately, the ideas and practices we are discussing today only aim to support capitalism that has put us in this environmental and climate crisis that we live in today. While I believe it is important to reduce emissions from various industries and to assist these industries to work towards a just transition away from polluting our air and our water and our food and our bodies, I don't agree with a plan that divests resources from true sustainable solutions and real clean energy solutions. Profit over people or our health is not a good reason to move forward with greenwashing of any of these practices. Now, I've heard a lot of comments here today about how digesters and farmers improve odor and air quality, but that is not really the case, and nor have any of these farmers on here today shared any data to prove that claim. Their efforts have simply contributed some to reduce the emissions that they chose to create. And that is only fair. And I'm not sure that we should be making that profitable for them. My experience and the people that we work with are impacted on a daily basis. Me and my son have asthma, and we do not see the difference in the air or the odors that surround us. The air is still really bad. It is very important for us to acknowledge that this is these are decisions that we have to make together as a community. And I just hope that, farmers don't continue to believe that, or actually truly invest their time to think about the air quality and their role they play, and not to really greenwash their practices. We've heard a lot of greenwashing here today. Dairy farmers are not the biggest environmentalist, and bioindustry is not green energy. But please, anything that we can do to work together to reduce the emissions is a good thing, but I think greenwashing those practices is not.
Thank you, Bianca. Next, we will move to Michael Nevis. Michael, please unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, my name is Michael Neves. I'm from Helmar, California. I'm currently the business development manager for Progressive Dairy Solutions. We're a nutrition and dairy management firm located in Oakdale, California. I want to acknowledge that today is World Milk Day. California is the number one dairy state in the United States. We've not only put California on the U.S. map, but we have put California on the world map. Our products are shipped across the seas to provide us food source for people that need a economical, nutritious food source. More recently, California has put the dairy. Most recently, California has put the dairy industry on the map for clean energy using cow manure. Pulling LCFS credits from the dairy industry will not only directly affect the livelihood of dairy owners, but those employees, but it will directly affect the food source of the United States and also affect the food source around the world for people who need a nutritious and economically affordable food source. Dairy is not only part of the solution for clean energy, but also part of the solution to end world hunger. Removing LCFS credits from the dairy industry will directly prevent that.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we will hear from Sasan Sadat. Sasan, please unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you so much. I just want to first start off by thanking CARB staff for having these workshops and inviting EJ views and alternative views and visions for the LCFS. I think it's really important and I really appreciate it. And also appreciated the critical findings presented by Professor Michael Wara and Stanford's run of the EJ scenario. I just add two key points that I think the slide didn't include, which are that, you know, the EJ scenario really works towards aligning the LCFS with the state and CARB's own air quality goals and the national ambient air quality standards. And right now, that's kind of lacking from the LCFS. And we would love to hear CARB's thoughts on how it could better align the LCFS with air quality obligations under the Federal Clean Air Act. And also I would add that by hemming in credit generation from biofuels and biogas, we can increase the credit price without having to increase carbon intensity as quickly and therefore reduce the pass-through cost to fuel consumers. And so the EJ scenario is really like a less regressive way to strengthen the clean subsidy that the LCFS provides, so that you don't have to just like wrench up carbon intensity. I think that's a really key strength of the EJ scenario, and I'd love to hear CARB's thoughts on it. And I also want to say, like, you know, I really don't feel there is any justification for continued avoided methane credits. I know that CARB staff knows our justice's position on that. At bottom, the avoided methane credits are solving the problem of unregulated methane pollution, which is a problem we don't have to have because CARB has authority to regulate methane pollution from polluters. And I know that there are a lot of problems with industrial agribusiness, and it's not fair to say that CARB's LCFS program is supposed to solve those problems, but it certainly shouldn't worsen or strengthen or accelerate them. And, you know, I know that a kind of image comes up when people say family farms, but the facts are the average size of a dairy farm in California is 1,000 head of cattle. The average farm that received a digester subsidy in California is over 9,000. So a very unique kind of farm can benefit from this program. I think that's really critical to hold with us as we ask, who does this program benefit? Thank you.
Thank you, Sasan. And that concludes our public comment for tonight. Back over to you, Cheryl.
Thanks so much, Cypress. And just want to thank everyone again, including Leadership Council and Michael from Stanford, and everyone who took their evening to join us and make some helpful comments. We will be reviewing those. I'm going to hand it to Matt Botil as we close out tonight.
You looked
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl, and thanks everybody. I'll keep this short. I know it's getting late here. I want to echo what Cheryl said. Just really my appreciation for everyone coming out, spending their evening tonight to give us their perspectives on the LCFS. And I will say, we had a little bit of a different workshop tonight in the set of comments than we got yesterday. Obviously, still just a focus on dairies, but I would say that what I heard today was a lot more comments from dairy farmers in particular about how the LCFS is interacting with their individual operations and what that is doing on dairies. And so again, I appreciate those perspectives. It's helpful for us to hear what the LCFS is resulting in. I mean, obviously, we think this is a very important policy for the state, and how it is resulting in changes that are happening both at dairies and then outside of dairies as well is what we want to learn more about to make sure that we're crafting a policy that is going to meet our broader climate and air quality goals that we have as a state. And I want to talk a little bit because I think there was some mention about the air quality pieces just real quickly, and kind of going back to what Cheryl had mentioned in her opening presentation, that the state really is on this path to addressing both climate change and air quality through accelerating the deployment of zero emission vehicles, and that is done through a number of the really hallmark regs that we've passed at the California Air Resources Board, like the Advanced Clean Fleets reg and the Advanced Clean Cars reg, and Advanced Clean Trucks that are going to really drive some of those zero emission vehicle deployment, and that are going to make those improvements on air quality. And we see an opportunity for the LCFS to really help provide the fuels to meet those increasing zero emission vehicle numbers over time. And we see an opportunity to help really decarbonize the fuel system more broadly. And so I just want to say that, I appreciate everybody's comments. We are moving forward with a cleaner, less polluting and, cleaner air quality and greenhouse gas economy in California. And that is always at the forefront of our mind. So yeah, Leslie, I see your hand up. I'll hand it to you for just a second.
I did just a few seconds. I know it's really getting late, and I just want to thank everyone as well. And I also just really want to uplift that although there weren't as many EJ voices here today, it's also really important to remember that, in California, I think a lot of folks talked about the amount of families they employed. I think that we're going to together, when we have these type of workshops, one of the key reasons we do them is so that we hear from all folks who are part of this, so they can all be part of this conversation. And so we find holistic solutions to policy. And we can only do that when we're all at the table. So I just want to thank everyone for being here today. As also a lifelong San Joaquin Valley resident, I'm really excited to be part of these conversations and to be part of the solution. And I'm glad that everybody here today wants to be part of that solution. So I look forward to more conversations with dairy owners, dairy folks who work on dairies, folks who work in the industry, and also people who do not work in the industry and do not benefit fiscally from it, because I think it's important for us to come up with solutions together. So thanks so much for your time. And again, thanks to CARB for really putting this on. I know events like these are really difficult. So I just, extending a lot of gratitude, and also to the interpreters, because I know how hard that is.
All right, give it back to Cheryl to close us out. Thank you.
Yeah, the interpreters are great. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, we really rely on them. So big round of applause for them as well. Thank you all again, and please submit public comments by the 14th, and we will review them as we develop our staff proposal. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.